Okay, so today I'm going to talk about neopixel lightsabers and are they good for dueling? Now, that question has been debatable that question has been debatable on social media, on TikTok, the lightsaber websites. Some will say don't duel with it, or light to medium dueling. Some websites will say duel worthy. TikTok videos will say they'll show yes, these blades are durable. Some will say no, do not duel with them because the LED strip could snap or get damaged or kill the pins on the bottom after a while, which with the LED strip, that could be true. Maybe after a while, because everything wears out and breaks after a while. Now, I'm gonna tell you my personal opinion about whether or not they're duel worthy. From my experience of dueling with lightsabers, it depends on the hilt. So, for instance, now this was a neopixel. It was actually my first neopixel lightsaber, but it's an empty hilt. So, it's an empty hilt because the blade to this stopped working. So it stopped glowing, but the soundboard was still working. Well, now it's barely working because even when I charge it, it'll turn on, but not for very long. But the blade to it still wouldn't glow. Now, this one had a different top, so it didn't have this right here. So I put this one on for better blade depth because the blade would only go down this far. If you have a lightsaber hilt if you have a neopixel lightsaber hilt where the blade goes down only this far, that's not good. That's not good for the pins. That's not good for the blade, and that's not something you should not duel with a blade that doesn't go very far into the hilts. Because there's gonna be blade wiggle, but it doesn't have to be perfect. So if it's maybe down to here and there's no blade wiggle, you should be fine. So for instance, this is my Ezra Bridger lightsaber from Padawan Outpost that was in Star Wars Rebels. And when I first got it, I put the blade in, but there was blade wiggle, and I couldn't figure out how to get to stop wiggling. So I asked on social media, is there a way I can actually put the screws in without having the blade wiggle? So I was told, loosen one screw up and then tighten the other screw in. And so far, okay, yes, it's a Profi, but
Master Yoda.
Count Dooku.
okay. Now the blade depth is down to here, I think. But the screws are up at the top. So it's not holding the blade from the very bottom. It's not holding the screw from the very bottom like this one was. But so that's why there's no blade wiggle, and it's actually in there more securely. So this is actually an okay hilt for dueling. I just wouldn't use it as a baseball bat. So light to medium dueling is fine with this. As long as you keep one screw in all the way and you keep the other one loose, you should be fine. Now, Saber Trio. Oh my gosh, Like, this is my first saber trio, and it's the coolest thing that I have in my lightsaber collection. This is perfect for dueling because it's got one big screw right here that's holding it from the very top, and then right here you got good blade depth. So, like, this blade ain't going anywhere. So you see how far that blade is down to here? That's how far down you'd want your blade to go down, whether it is heavy or mid-grade. So like at least this far down, if you like really want to duel with it. That's great blade depth. Now, it also depends on the type of screws, because so like, I mean, I don't think you'd be able to see it very well, but like these two have like a decent sized screw, retention screws. I think that's what they're called. Now, Corbanth, I would not recommend dueling with one of these. Not because their blades are terrible, but actually it's because of how small their screws are. Oh, wait. I unscrewed the wrong thing. This right here. Okay. So even though this round thing is tight on the blade, that doesn't really help the blade from going anywhere. So I don't think you can see it, but no. So right there. See that? Those screws are so tiny that there were a couple of times where actually no matter how, so there's 3 screws, and no matter how I try to screw them in, like they would, like there's still blade wiggle right now. So with neopixel lightsabers with screws like these, I would not recommend dueling with them, because one time, twice, I was dueling with this and it didn't even like last very long because the blade actually fell out. It actually fell out. These screws are not going to hold it. So now this is my only Corbanth lightsaber. I don't know if all of them have screws that small, because I think the Darth Vader one has like a big knob that actually holds the blade. That's supposed to be like part of the hilt. That looks like a much better screw than what these have. But these screws are so tiny, you can like grab, like I've actually like grabbed the blade and literally like pulled it right out. These screws are not going to hold it. So if you get a Qui-Gon Jinn or an Obi-Wan Kenobi or any of those kinds of hilts from Corbanth, I would not recommend dueling with it, because these screws are not gonna hold the blade, and the blade's gonna fall out. Now, Saber Trio, on the other hand, has a very good way of good blade depth and good screws, and has a secure blade. So this blade's not gonna fall out, and you can actually choose heavy grade or mid grade. But heavy grade or mid grade, I don't really think there's really much. I don't really think it makes much of a difference. Yes, thicker's better, but because of how protected these LED blades are, it's like I've seen Google images on the inside of a neopixel blade. So you got. So in your blade, you got the LED strip, obviously, and then you got a thick wall of foam like around it, and then you got another wall. So there's another wall behind this blade, and then you got the blade. This blade is so protected. these neopixel blades are so protected that I think even if you were like heavy dueling with this, your blade's gonna break off before the LED strips actually get damaged. Your blade's gonna break before the LED does. So I wouldn't worry about the LED strip being damaged, because I think that's very less likely to happen unless you've been dueling a lot with it for like a couple of years. But as far as blade depth or the kind of screws that as far as blade depth or the amount of screws it has, or the kind of screws it has, I would check to see if the blade is actually secure to the point where there's no blade wiggle, or to the point where the blade won't fall out when dueling, because otherwise after a while the pins are probably going to stop. The pins are probably going to get damaged, and it's not going to work anymore. Because with these hilts that have not very much blade depth, the bottom of the blade is going to be like wiggling around on the pins, which is like going to be ruining the pins, because the blade is not in there securely, because there's so much weight on the hilt. Because the retention screws are holding it from the very bottom of the hilt. You do not want your retention screws to hold the blade from the very bottom. Now, if the screw was like right up here, that probably would have been better. That probably would be better for dueling a little bit. Like it would be just as good for dueling as this one. But since LGT is like using too many screws on this one, and then having the screw hold it from the very bottom, which this one won't even like hold the blade at all. So it's usually the top ones that are holding the blade, and there's always blade wiggle. So an Obi-Wan Kenobi hilt from Episode 3, I would not recommend for dueling. Korbanth lightsabers I do not recommend for dueling, but they're very cool looking. Like, they're very movie accurate. This is, I mean, I think they did a good job on the look of the hilt. But as far as dueling, just get a hilt with good blade depth or good screws that will actually hold the blade securely. And yeah. So you can duel with neopixel lightsabers. Just don't just make sure the blade is in there securely and has good screws. And if you really want a heavy duel with them, but also don't want to spend a lot of money on a replacement, like a blade replacement, because I know those things are expensive. They go from $75 to over $100 for a new blade, which that's one of the main reasons why people don't really duel with neopixel lightsabers. But you're more likely to damage a blade from Force FX sabers or Disney Legacy sabers, or Savvy's Workshop, same thing. But you're more likely to damage those blades, even for LEDs, than a neopixel, because these are actually more protected. But if you want to duel with a neopixel lightsaber, get one that has good screws that hold from the very top, or has very good blade depth, because the blade's not going to go anywhere. That blade's not going to go anywhere. It is very secure. Now, I know some of you in the comments section are probably going to disagree on, don't duel with neopixels. But, hey, everybody has an opinion. Everybody has their own judgment on whether or not you should duel with neopixels, and that's fine. But for those of you that actually want to duel with neopixel lightsabers, get one that actually has good blade depth or has good screws. And if optional, get a heavy grade Neo blade. If you really want to, if you like really want to like heavy duel with it, go get a heavy grade blade. They have heavy grade Neo blades on Imperial Workshop for like $75. Also give a shout out to Saber Trio. Saber Trio is a very good company, and I actually love this lightsaber. They know how to craft their lightsabers. This looks like a Obi-Wan Kenobi. This looks like a custom version of Obi-Wan Kenobi. If you really think about it, the bottom part right here, the middle, the round thing right here, and they know how to make their lightsabers durable. So, give a shout out to Saber Trio. Also give a shout out to Corbanth, because they really know how to make their hilts. Well, actually, I'm pretty sure Corbanth is actually partnered with either KR or 89 Sabers. Some of you can confirm in the comment section, but also give a shout out to Corbanth on their hilts, because they are amazing. They're very movie accurate. But, however, they could use better screws, because they don't really hold the blade very well. However, their hilts are amazing. I love this hilt, and this one has like a very good grip compared to the legacy version of this. It's like, I love the hilts, and I love the sound fonts. This even has a Pikachu sound font. So, again, give a shout out to Corbanth and Saber Trio, because they are awesome companies, and I highly recommend them to, like, I only recommend Corbanth if you just want to, like, collect, but I would not recommend dueling with it. But if you really want to duel with a neopixel lightsaber, I recommend the Saber Trio. So in conclusion of that, you can duel with a neopixel. Just make sure you get the right hilt that actually holds the blade securely. Otherwise, it's gonna ruin the pins sooner or later, and it's gonna stop working. So that's all I got.